Hello there, folks. It's Tyson, and I'm coming to you from the Basement Workshop. I'm happy to be here because today we are going to be starting a new series, a few videos, about making a new project and making that project in a way that is environmentally friendly. So we're going to talk a little about the 3 R's, maybe you know what that means, and we're going to talk about measurement and some other tools that you might have seen in other videos, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So let's get started here. Let's say hello to Tyson, little Tyson. Let's turn on our lights, and let's get down to business. So I've got my tools that I plan to be using today. And it's always a good idea to clear off your workspace so that you've just got the things that you're going to be using. I find that helps me stay organized. So we're going to be using these in a few moments, but first I'm going to clear them away because we are going to talk about some of those 3 R's. So the 3 R's have been around for a long time. We've got here recycle, reuse, and reduce, and they're not always in that order. You know, when I was younger, there was a commercial that used to talk about recycle, reduce, reuse to close the loop. Now, depending on who you talk to, some people might say one is better than the other, or we should do one before the other. But in my opinion, if you're trying to do these 3 things, you're making an important difference. So the first one is recycle. And what that means is to convert waste into reusable material, or to change waste into something that can be used again. So an example of that would be something like a plastic drink bottle. That's a situation where we've used it in one way as a bottle, and then what happens with those is that if you recycle them, they will go and get cleaned. Sometimes they get melted down or ground up into little pieces and then made into something new, maybe a different type of plastic packaging. And so that is taking waste or something that would have gone into the garbage and making it into something new, a reusable material. Now, the other one is reusing, and that means just to use something again or to use it more than once. So a great example of that is something as simple as a grocery bag. You know, a lot of stores have the plastic grocery bags, and if you save those plastic bags and use them to carry your lunch in or to put other items in, that's a great example of reusing. Now that's a really good one because if you're reusing something in the shape that it's already in, it doesn't need any extra energy or any other resources to make it into something new. So reusing is a really great option. Now, the last one here, and some people might say it's the simplest, some people might say it's the most difficult, is reducing. So, you know, what that word means is make smaller or less in amount. And for us, in this situation, what that means is using less, reducing the amount that you use. So, you know, in our lives, there is plastic almost everywhere, all around us, every day. And so it's very difficult to say, no, I'm not going to use plastic at all. But what we can do is be aware of the plastic in our daily lives and try to use less of it. So we reduce the amount that we use. Now, those are 3 different ways to help cut down on the amount of garbage that might be going into the landfill. And so I'm gonna get this stuff back here because we're gonna practice some recycling and reusing with this project. And by recycling and reusing, we're going to reduce the amount of junk that's actually going into the garbage. So here I have my trusty clipboard, and these are some things I was working on over the holidays. So this is a hammer holder. This is a device to hold screwdrivers. This is a device to hold clamps, which we've seen in some of our earlier videos making the wood carts. And you see we've got all kinds of different measurements on here. So with the project that we are doing, we are going to be using some of this material that I found in a back lane. So we're going to be recycling that, making it into something new. And we are going to be using our measuring tools to organize the shop a little bit. So I'm going to take you on a tour to show you just the kind of stuff that we're going to be making. This is one of the walls in my shop here, and I'm sorry, it's a bit of a mess, but this is where I do a lot of the work, and this wall is what I was working on over the break. And so we are going to be working on something to organize all of these boxes of, these are screws and nails, things like that, because they're kind of in the way just sitting on the counter right there. So this is a type of holding system or an organization system that's called French cleats. So what you see is there are two parts to it. There's this part that gets attached to the back of the tool holder, and there's this part that is screwed into the wall. So if we take a long look down here, what you can see is this piece of wood is actually at an angle. And you know, oh, look, I got a sliver as I was moving some wood there. But this is a system that's really cool because it uses gravity to keep those tools in place. So I'm going to do my best to grab this piece of wood, and let's see if we can measure the angle with our protractor. 1 minute. All right, here's my piece of wood, and what we're going to do is we're going to measure this angle, and it's a bit tough because it's been cut off on this edge so that it's not too sharp, but I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to put the bottom flat edge on the bottom edge of this piece of wood, and then we're going to look and measure what this angle is. So I'm going to put my 90-degree section right at the tip here. Now this is a bit of an awkward piece to measure, but if we put it just like that, and I hope we can see clearly here, if we look, this edge is just between 40 and 50. I'm sorry, my camera's swinging here. I'll try to stop it. There we go. So we see that this angle comes up. Oh, how can I show you the best way here? My gosh. Oh, that's so much better. Okay. So we see that this angle is between 40 degrees and 50 degrees, and this is a 45-degree angle. So what that means is that when I have these tools on the wall, you see that same piece of wood there, and we have a 45-degree angle on the wall that's going up. Here's a 45-degree angle that's going down. So when I put it against the wall, drop it in there, the gravity that's pushing downwards actually keeps this tool rack nice and sturdy on the wall. So that's a pretty cool little science thing in its own. We're using angles and gravity to actually hold something in place. Now that's pretty cool if you ask me. It's occurred to me, I've got a few other things on the go here that I'm just going to show you, thinking about recycling and reusing. So this piece of wood right here is from a pallet. You may have seen these things, in warehouses. They're those pieces of wood that are kind of crisscrossed and they have boxes stacked on them. Now this was a piece of wood that was twisted. So that means if we look this way, it was going twisted almost like a corkscrew. And what I've done is I'm using clamps to actually try to flatten it out so that I can use it to make a project. Now if you remember about simple machines, a clamp is really cool because it has these pieces right here. So these are at an angle. That's a screw type simple machine. And what it does is it uses the bottom part and the top part here to push together. Where's my fingers? It squeezes together like that, and that's a force called compression. So I'm using compression to try to flatten out this board so I can use it for a new project. Now here's another example of reusing or recycling. This is a handsaw, and you can see that the handle has actually broken off here. Now some folks might take that and just throw it away, but because I've got some tools and a little bit of know-how, I'm actually going to try to make a new handle, and I'm trying to make it out of some harder wood. This type of wood is called walnut. It's a nice dark brown color, and it's really hard wood, so hopefully when I make this saw handle, it won't break like that. So we've got a couple examples here of recycling and reusing. We've got a funky little gravity science situation to organize the tools that I've got. And so let's grab these screw boxes here that I'm going to be making this project about, and let's go back to the work table. All right, my friends, we are back at the work table here, and I'm going to show you these are the materials that we're going to be using to make this project. So I was talking about recycling, and I found these in a back lane. Someone had put them out behind their garage because they were going to go in the garbage, and they thought, hey, maybe someone else can use these. Maybe someone can recycle them and make this waste into something new. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, just a little bit of detail about what we're using here. This is something that's called plywood. Now, from this side, it looks like a board, but if we look at the back, and see if we can get some good light on here. If we look at the back, you can actually see that there are different layers, or what's called different plies. So each of those pieces is called a ply, and one thing that's really neat about plywood is that when you have what's called the grain of the wood, you see how there's sort of the pattern, the design going this way. Plywood is made so that it has one layer with the grain going this way, and then the second layer has the grain going this way, and the third layer, which way do you think the grain is going? Going this way, and it alternates like that. And so what that actually gives us is a really, really strong material in the end, because if you have force on it bending this way or bending this way, the grain direction is gonna fight against that force, and it's gonna stay pretty flat and pretty straight and very strong in the way that it's being used. So we have our plywood piece. Now, something really neat about this plywood piece is that whoever was using it before took the time to put some nice hardwood on the front. Now, if we have a look here, trying to get a little more light for you, there we go. So if we look at this, this is kind of a light brown sort of color, and this is oak wood. So you might remember oak from when we were learning about trees to build and using natural resources for transportation. Or you might also remember it when we were talking about plants and medicine that Métis people made. Now, I'm going to see if I can just get a neat shot of how this was attached. It's a little bit hard to see, but if we have a look, it's almost like a T that's in there, attaching that oak into the plywood. And so that's another cool activity, or another cool technique, I should say, in woodworking, when you actually take the piece of wood, and in this case it's a piece of plywood. So this is that top edge. Someone has taken a saw or another tool called a router, probably, and they made a notch in that wood, and then they've used that oak piece to cut it like this. and then it just slides down into that notch like that. And that makes a really strong joint because then it's not just connected on the front, but it's connected here, 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 here. There's more surface area to make that a strong joint. Okay, so we have our plywood pieces with that nice oak front edging on it. And we have this piece. So this is a piece of wood that I've heard it called masonite. I've heard it called compressed wood. But this is something that's being recycled from, this is like a carpet display piece or maybe a tile display piece. So, you know, sometimes you see flooring with display things at Home Depot or places like that. This was a board that was used to display probably a piece of tile. And so we're going to use that to make some little shelves. A great way to reuse and recycle. All right, so I'm going to get our materials out of the way here. We're going to talk about the project that we need to do. Here's where we're going to get into some nice measuring stuff. And then I'm going to explain what we've got to do, and we're going to call it a day. So we have a few different types of screw boxes here. And we want to make a shelf that's going to hold all of them, and then we're going to hang it on that cleat wall, that French cleat wall. So when we're doing something like this, I think it's a good idea to measure the biggest container so that we can make sure our shelf is going to be big enough. So which container do you think is the biggest? Which one do you think we should start with? Now, I'm going to say this looks like our biggest container. So I think this is a good place to start, and we need to measure not only the length, well, how can we talk about this? Because we need three. We need length, width, and we also need to measure the height. Okay, so let's see. This one we have, it is, here's 10 centimeters, and it looks like about 18 centimeters. So I'm going to make it just a little bit deeper, and let's say it's 19 centimeters here. So that's 19 centimeters. We're going to call that long by, can you see how wide that is? That red, we have 20 centimeters, and it's looking like 28 centimeters. And, you know, we don't want things to fit in there too tightly. So let's say we're going to make that 29 centimeters. Okay, and now let's look this way. How tall is that? It's a bit tough for you to tell on the camera there, but looks like if we make it 5 centimeters, we're going to have enough space to move it in and out. Okay, so, well, let's see, 19 centimeters long, 29 centimeters wide, and 5 centimeters tall. Okay, so that needs to be, that's our biggest measurement. All right, we're going to need to remember that. I'm going to just put this aside. Now, let's see if any of these ones are taller, because we might need to make the different spaces bigger. So here, how tall is that one? Looks like it's between 3.5 and 4. So we're going to say 4 centimeters, which means if we make our shelves 5 centimeters apart, this one will fit. So that's great. Now let's see if I want to put it in my shelf this way is 19 centimeters long. Is that going to work for this one? Let's check it out. So we're measuring this distance here. Oh my gosh, that's almost perfect. We're between 18.5 and 19 centimeters, so that's good. Now I'm going to put this one aside, and I'm actually going to put these together in the way that I want to see them on the shelf. So I'm going to put them like that. Now these two, I can put this one like that. Oh, it's a bit longer though. So let's measure this one. Maybe we need to make that shelf bigger. 20.5 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to make this number a little bit bigger so that it's deep enough. So if that was 20.5, I'm going to make this 21 centimeters. Okay, and how about these guys here? You know, I think I'll probably put them in the shelves on top like that. So let's measure these ones. How wide is that one? Or how long, I should say. That's going to be in at 21 centimeters too, so that will work. We've got that covered here. And then we've got these smaller ones. These ones will just be able to go on top of there. Okay, so if we are going to look from this angle, if we imagine we're looking at the shelf on the wall, that's what it's going to look like. So we have 21 centimeters long. Whoop, there we go. And each, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of this the other way. You know, maybe I draw this out in a better way. So let's look at it like this. So that means I want it to be 21 centimeters this way. Okay. I want it to be 29 centimeters wide. So that's 29 centimeters this way. And I also need it to be deep. So that means that each one is going to be 5 centimeters, but I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections that I want to make. So I need to do a bit of math here. 5 centimeters. And if I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, I'm going to do 5 multiplied by 4 is 20 centimeters tall. So I'm going to change this number here because I want to make sure that it's the entire amount. Okay, so that means that we need something that's going to look like this. And this measurement is 21 centimeters. So I'm going to make my life easy, and I'm going to make it also 21 centimeters like that. So now we're making something that is a box or a cube. Okay, very neat. So we're going to stop it there for now because this is going to get a little more involved. So we've done a little bit of measuring and math for the size that we need to make things. We talked about some simple machines and some other stuff that was going on in the tool room using gravity to hold our tools. And the big thing we talked about, recycling, reducing, and reusing. So I'm really looking forward to reusing these wood products that we have here and using measurements in order to make something that's useful. So thanks for sticking along with me here. We laid the foundation, the groundwork for what we're going to be doing moving forward. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's say goodbye to little Tyson. Let's turn off the lights, and I'll see you next time.